Hello and welcome to Moneylife. This is Sucheta Dalal. This week, we're naturally going to talk about this disastrous air crash at Ahmedabad and what it means for Air India and Indian aviation. In fact, to my mind, it exposes deep structural flaws in Indian aviation. Now, we know that India's aviation sector is once again battling fierce headwinds, and this time, Air India is at the center of the storm. If you've been reading newspapers over the past week, it's no longer about one horrific, tragic crash of the 171 from Ahmedabad to London, which happened on 12th June. In fact, a spate of incidents in quick succession have cast a dark cloud over the Tata owned carrier. On 17 June, landed from the 171 was cancelled because the aircraft was apparently unavailable. This was just a day after it had resumed service. On the same day, 180, the flight from San Francisco to Mumbai, was grounded in Kolkata due to engine troubles. People had to be deplaned. On 16 June, Flight 315 from Hong Kong to Delhi and Flight 9695 from Delhi to Ranchi both returned to base because of suspected technical snags. Apparently, the pilots said they don't want to fly. Doesn't matter that on the same day, a British Airways Boeing Dreamliner again was forced to turn back to London, indicating broad concerns about the Boeing Dreamliner aircraft. To add to all this, India's civil aviation regulator, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, which is better known to everyone as DGCA, ordered an immediate safety inspection of the entire fleet of 787 Dreamliners. This further disrupted schedules because each time an aircraft was going through the safety check meant additional groundings. All this was playing out in the middle of another crisis, which is the temporary closure of airspace following increased hostility between Israel and Iran. And don't forget, we already have the Pakistan airspace closed. Air India flights were directly affected, at least 4 of them, along with, of course, many around the world. But it was like adding of problems for this one airline. So let's not make it about them. The current panic engulfing Air India may have started with the Dreamliner, but it raises a broader question. Can Indian aviation truly meet the immense potential that is there in India without a clear policy, robust safety standards, rationalized cost structures, which go beyond why they bought a Boeing and whether it is safe? Yes, there are complaints, and I'm coming to that. India's commercial skies, let's first understand, is now a duopoly. Indigo, which has over 60%, the big daddy in the market, and Air India, which was once the flag carrier, which shrunk to about 29-30% of the market. Air India itself is an amalgamation of a number of airlines within the group. Air India Express, Vistara, and Air Asia have been clubbed into one, which is Air India, and there is AIX Connect. So there are 4 airlines clubbed into 2. And then there is SpiceJet and Akasa Air, both limping along. SpiceJet has had a lot of problems, groundings. Akasa has been facing a funds crunch. But there's no sign that those are getting over anytime soon and that these are ready for a big expansion, which India needs. It's not about them. It's about what we need in the country. And remember, let's place this in perspective. This is a market which has already seen massive failures. Jet Airways, which was the number 1 airline after having dethroned Air India, Kingfisher, which had absorbed Deccan Air, Sahara, and so many others. We're not going back 30 years because the list is endless. The point is, we have made a mess of civil aviation. We choose the wrong players. We let them operate in wrong ways. They flame out. They have large debt. There is allegations of diversion of funds. And this affects us as a country. So let's come back to the Tatas. The Tatas came back with a bang in 2022. It was a fulfillment of JRD Tata's dream. Air India, for those of you who don't know, used to be one of the best airlines in the world. It was unceremoniously nationalized and it has sunk to this big, giant behemoth with huge losses and this pitiable situation until the Tatas took over in 2022. There was great expectations. We expected it back. Yes, we know we have to give them time. But even from the Tatas, The rhetoric was bold, in line with sky high public expectations. The group announced a 70 billion fleet overhaul, which is part of a 5-year transformation that was called VihanAI. Everything about the Tata group these days is led with technology, and now, of course, AI is the suffix. Its chief executive, Campbell Wilson, has come from Singapore Airlines. He announced a major recruitment drive, 9,000 new employees, investments in IT and infrastructure aimed at regenerating an aging workforce. So 9,000 new employees saw a drop in average employee age from 54 to 35. That tells you what Air India was. 3 years on, the optics, I'm afraid, are underwhelming. There have been innumerable complaints, and despite posting a small operating profit after years of losses, in the public eye, things have not been looking too good. Air India's image was tarred by technical failures, creaking aircraft, demoralized staff, all kinds of issues that were happening even before this disastrous crash. In fact, one incident on which I've done a separate video blog in March 25 revealed how embarrassing this can be, not just for them, but for India. A flight 125 from Chicago to Delhi was forced to return after just 5 hours of flying because, believe it or not, 8 out of the 12 lavatories had become unusable. What did Air India say? They well took care of people, but they blamed the passengers. And they said they had been flushing rags, plastic bags, and what have you in the toilets, all in 5 hours. It is unbelievable, but that's where it was silenced, and the episode highlighted deteriorating cabin interiors and fleet upkeep, according to some experts, not just poor civic sense on the part of Indians, which, if you ask me, is a serious issue. Adding to the concerns is a growing unease over the Boeing aircraft. We already know about all the global summons, the whistleblower revelations, the grilling of the Boeing chief. Now, what has Air India done? In its ambitious fleet expansion, the one that crashed here, so far there have been lots of complaints, but this is the first crash, the turning point. There are 10 more Boeing 777Xs and 190 737 MAX jets. We don't know how this is going to play out, but the public is worried, and this worry has increased exponentially after the recent crash. Now, let's look at aviation. Aviation is a unique industry. It's extremely high profile and very unforgiving. You pay a lot for that economy cattle class seat, and when things are not okay, especially when it is a business class or first class, which has also been happening, things go wrong, people take videos, those go viral instantly, and they turn into news headlines. For the Tata Group, this probably is a learning curve. The group has been super sensitive, especially so under Chairman N. Chandrasekaran. It has launched defamation suits against media organizations on very, very flimsy, if you ask me, imaginary issues, which were far less than the kind of press and publicity that Air India is bringing them. And here they have repeatedly had to admit that it is their issue. But an airliner crash has now taken it to an absolutely different level. So it's no longer about a string of viral posts and media reports about poor maintenance. This is about safety, and it forces a different and more humble response. To its credit, we have seen this humility, and the response has been quite reassuring, if you ask me. Then there is the internal turbulence that Air India has been facing even before the air crash, which we don't know all about as the public, but it has played out in the public domain. People say, and there are lots of posts on social media and Reddit and elsewhere, that Air India, by opting for a policy of centralization, ignored the individual culture of various air carriers that they merged into Air India. For instance, Vistara. It was known as one of the best airlines, terrific service, but apparently in the merger, the staff was treated very badly, not recognized for what they were done, and they have been smothered in the Air India legacy, public sector legacy, which is not about great service at all. So complaints of arbitrary staff transfers and rather poor contracts as part of the merger have added to it. Obviously, the staff is demoralized. And it's not the ex Vistara employees alone. Remember what happened to Air India Express? The virtual mutiny in March 2024. 300 employees called in sick. It forced the cancellation of 170 flights before the management finally began to listen to people. They threatened to take action. They told it's withdrawn, and they have obviously done some talking after that. But this is the stage it reached in the Tata Group, mind you. All this has unfolded even as India keeps boasting about civil aviation. Yes, there is a demand. That is why India is now the world's third largest aviation market, not just in terms of domestic travel, but the number of Indians traveling abroad. Everyone is interested in getting routes to India. On 2nd June, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi reiterated this while addressing IATA, which is a global organization of civil aviation, at their annual general meeting. He has stressed on what he had done, which is Udan, Udega Har Nagrik. This is a scheme of regional connectivity where the government gives a subsidy to people to connect regional airports, and we're building a lot of them. The PM called this a golden chapter in civil aviation, and he said 15 million people had got the benefit of affordable air travel. He also put out milestones. He said 240 million air passengers are carried by Indian aircraft annually. This is projected to reach 500 million by 2030, and cargo capacity is going to triple from 3.5 million to 10 million metric tons. The Prime Minister also said that India's airports, with an annual handling capacity of 500 million passengers, are setting new standards in user experience. Those of you who have traveled to Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, Hyderabad will agree. But this is not the case all over the country. We are building innumerable airports. We want to subsidize it. We want to spend money on that. But where are the aircraft? We no longer have a flag carrier. They're all private airlines, and they are struggling. Look closer and you realize that all this optimism is misplaced. In fact, of the 619 Udan routes that were launched, only 323 remain active, and 114 were discontinued even without working for 3 years. Who's saying this? The Minister of State for Civil Aviation, Murlidhar Mohol, in the Rajya Sabha in February this year. Now, many regional airports have been constructed at considerable cost as part of this connectivity. They are badly underutilized. Sindhudurg is an example. There are many more across the country. We need aircraft carriers first, or we need to encourage foreign airlines to land and connect, which is not happening because it's not enough traffic in smaller places, because India's growth is also lopsided. It is concentrated among few rich people, adds to our GDP numbers, and they are in the cities. There is poverty in smaller towns. These are all symptoms of poor planning and bad policy, not enough carriers to meet the demand of airline seats, even in the metros. So metros congested, overbooked, not enough seats, and regional airports which are being built and connected with subsidies don't have passengers. What a strange situation. This is a sector which is already burdened by historical mismanagement on the policy front. We are not even going into what happened during Civil Aviation Minister Praful Patel's time. It's all there in a book called Descent of Air India. Then there are the costs. Indian Airlines struggle with rising input costs. Aviation turbine fuel, which comprises 35 to 40% of operational expenses, is steeply taxed in India, not under GST. The weak rupee makes matters worse because a lot of the costs have to be paid in foreign exchange, and the rupee is getting weaker, which means that aircraft are paying more for aircraft leases, maintenance, fuel, all denominated in dollars. The airports themselves are pinching pockets, our pockets and those of the airline. Privatization of airports has led to a steep increase in user charges. The Adani Group in Mumbai, for instance, has demanded that airlines have to shift from bank guarantees to upfront cash deposits. Why? Because airlines are prone to default. This is what one of the largest to the most close to the government groups has to say. about carriers. So it's not me whining about them. This is the message that we're getting. Then you have high user development fees and other levies, which have made travel expensive for us as consumers. Complicating all this further is geopolitics. Like I said earlier, closure of the airspace over Pakistan after what happened in Pelgam, the Iran Israel conflict, all these are forcing expensive detours, which means more fuel, more time, timetables have to be reworked, and costs. And airlines are all working on wafer thin margins. Add to this the Ahmedabad crash, which is going to push up insurance premiums significantly. In fact, there's a headline today which says that the liability could be unlimited if it turns out that the airline is at fault. All this is being investigated. India's aviation story is one of unrelenting demand. Yes, we are a growing country, there is demand, but it's been throttled by poor policies and many failures. System is overstretched. Airlines need support, not slogans. We don't need posting. We need to help them. We need more carriers in the air. We need them to be stable. We need them to be profitable. We need them to focus on safety. We need taxes to be rationalized. And for all this to happen, you need consistent policies and you need heavy oversight. Now, the risks of a duopoly are obvious. One stumbles, then the whole sector is at risk. Air India has already stumbled. You can see the impact with passengers, airports, and ultimately the economy bears the brunt because not everyone is flying for joyrides. You're flying for business. This affects the economy. It's a precarious structure for a nation that aspires to be a 10 trillion economy but cannot build a credible aviation backbone. The government needs to act quickly. They need to reform policy. They need to encourage fair competition. They need to have people with deep pockets coming into this sector and make investments. But they will do that only if the sector is not operating in a risky manner on wafer thin profits, which means reduce taxes, especially on air turbine fuel, and address systemic weaknesses. What is the weakness? Here's a report. It was released by a parliamentary standing committee, which says that 53% of posts at the DGCA, which is the civil aviation regulator, are vacant. 35% at the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security and 17% at the Airport Authority of India. Does this not frighten you? We are depending on them and they're short staffed. New airports are continuing to be announced. You can't fill up vacancies which exist. All these new airports need staff. The regulatory infrastructure is in an alarming situation. This suggests misdirected focus on building airports without passengers, without carriers, and very little safety on the ground. If you ask me, Indian aviation is at the crossroads. Demand is soaring, particularly in the metros, but unless safety oversight is strengthened, costs are under control, and the lack of airlines to meet this growing demand is addressed, it will impact economic growth. And we are a country looking for superpower status. We're not satisfied with being Viksit. We want to be called a superpower. Then our failure to fix the aviation sector, which is high profile and a signal of what the country is about, is acutely embarrassing. It's an embarrassing contradiction. If you agree, please spread the word so that somebody in government hears and addresses things. Let's not keep announcing higher GST. Let's fix our issues. And while you're at it, please do subscribe. Thank you.